Yeah, we're live. 10 minutes late. I want you to note I'm back. Hope you guys all had a happy and safe 4th of July. We actually celebrated on the 3rd and the 4th. It was very cool. We got to go to nearby Winners and go up and watch the big fireworks display that they have, and also light fireworks because it wasn't legal in our little town. So unfortunately, we had to go somewhere else. We had to take a road trip, but it was awesome. We had friends there, and lots of people obviously celebrating and being happy and safe and sane. So it was all really, really good stuff. So when we got to, one of my favorite things is going to the fireworks stand. And because the last time we went to get fireworks, we weren't able to find any of the snakes. And we like the snakes. So we like to light them and watch them do their thing. And so the last time we went a little bit late. So they'd sold out of those right away. In fact, we went to one of the stands before we went to light the fireworks. We went to one of the stands and they didn't have any. And then we went to the next one and I said, okay, do you guys have any snakes? He goes, yes. How many do you want? I said, well, how many you got? He said, I got a case. I said, I will take all of them. So if you went to that fireworks stand and they ran out of snakes, I'm sorry, that was because of me. And we ended up lighting a lot of snakes. The case was a lot more than I thought it was, and it was way more than we needed, obviously. But we had a lot of good ones. We had a lot of big opening shows and closing shows and those kinds of things. So we got to set it off, and it was kind of nice. I'm a big fan of the 4th of July, and I really like lighting the fireworks and stuff. So hopefully all you guys were safe and happy, and hopefully everything worked out for you. And I actually got to catch snakes too. So we went to see my in-laws, and I got to go up on the hill, and I was able to find one rattlesnake, and he came out and he was fairly nice and gentle and wasn't mad, wasn't even rattling or anything. He was just like, oh, okay, whatever, whatever you're going to do, it's cool. So we just hung out for a little bit, and I let him go back under his rock, and he was all happy. So it was a successful trip. The other thing that I like about that is I like getting out into nature and being away from all of the people and all the nonsense that's going on. And also it's a hike up the hill, so it's really good for you. So in addition to running and working out and stuff, I do those things so that I can go do these other things. So it's pretty awesome. So I just I have an L99, the little 4.3 liter V8 that I have here that I was supposed to take apart and do a video on and show you all of the things that went wrong the last time we tried to run it because we lost oil pressure. So I'm sure it's got bad bearings. I'm going to take that back down to West Tech. It's loaded up in the truck, and I'm leaving probably tomorrow. And we'll head down there and do some more dyno testing. I have this. Yeah, camshaft. This is one of the cams that I got. And I got it from my buddy Jerry. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these two cams. These are 05 and earlier cams. And we're going to send them over to the guys at Schneider, who are awesome. I've done lots of stuff with them. They've been involved in a number of our Bonneville deals where we didn't have, readily available camshafts like with the Suzuki Kazashi. I mean, who makes a camshaft for that? So we made one. Well, I should say they made one. And it ended up working out great. We were able to set the record and go fast. That car went over 200 miles an hour, so it was awesome. But they're going to regrind these cams. And so my question is this, and this is what was in the thumbnail. The factory camshaft is a whopping 170 degrees at 50 on the intake and 180 degrees at 50 on the exhaust. So you can see very, very mild cams. Now, a 4-valve motor doesn't really need as much camshaft as a typical 2-valve does. It is a 396, 369 lift. So it has more exhaust duration, but less exhaust lift, interestingly enough. And this is obviously a variable cam, but it's adjustable just on the exhaust side. So we're changing the lobe separation angle basically by changing the exhaust side, as Calvin pointed out. If you guys haven't taken a look at Calvin's video where he actually did testing varying the adjustable cam timing with different boost levels. And the cool thing, and he pointed this out in his video, is that he did it with a fairly small turbo. So that GT45 or GT3582 turbo is fairly small. So he was concerned about there being a high boost pressure to back pressure ratio. And from what he was showing, it's not really that big. I mean, we've seen 2-to-1 and 3-to-1 stuff, but on a turbo that's limited, he was showing what happens when they vary the VVT timing on the 4200 Atlas motor, which is pretty cool testing. I really like that stuff. That's why I watch all of his stuff. We're going to find out, because one thing he wasn't able to do, and I just talked to him today about it, is when I go back down and we get everything running and we got our fingers crossed that everything is going to work the way it's supposed to, we're going to run some variable cam timing testing under boost. We're using electronic controller, so we'll be able to run the same amount of boost, and obviously we'll have the right air, fuel, and timing and all that stuff. But what I want to find out is if, and this is the thing that I asked Calvin today, is we know that he showed that obviously the VVT needs actually change a little bit once it's turbocharged compared to what it was naturally aspirated. And we might expect that, especially as we start influencing that with back pressure. What I want to know is it also influenced by RPM? Like, does it want different variable cam timing at the top end once we start raising the boost? Is it going to want that change? Because then the reason that I ask is if you haven't watched the video on the Atlas motor, if you take a look at that, you'll see that when we first ran a turbo on it, that we started to seem like it kind of fall off a little bit at the top. And I didn't change VVT at all when we were running the turbo stuff. We figured out what it was naturally aspirated and then just maintained that. And as Calvin showed, it actually probably wanted a little bit less than we were running, because on the naturally aspirated motor, it wanted as much as we could give it. So it'll be interesting testing to do that. And also, we're sending these cams down. The cams probably won't be ready for this test, but we will be able to do a cam test while we're there. So we'll be able to run the early cams, the 05 and earlier, and then the 06 and up cams. And I think it's just looks like it's just the exhaust that's changing. So on the 06 and up, it's still showing 170 degrees of intake duration and 184 degrees of exhaust duration, although the lift is changing on the intake on the 06 from 396 to 430, and it actually has a little bit more exhaust too. So both the cams are a little bit better. So it would be interesting to find out if there's a change from going from the 06 cams, from the 05 cams to the 06 cams. And it might also be interesting to find out if we do those one at a time. Obviously, it's more testing, but if we can find out one of them that makes more of a difference than the other. And I say that this is going to take a long time, because obviously if we change one camshaft, we're also going to have to run through a sequence of VVT testing. So we change the cam and then cycle the VVT and see if that particular cam combination wants different timing events. And then we'll have to put the other cam in and do the same thing. But it's still really good information. And I'm hoping, I have my fingers crossed, that the machine shop has both of the heads done, so we can run the 05 head, which now is just basically all stock, but it has a good valve job and all that stuff is sealed up, and an 06 head, which I'm told flows more. So I would like to be able to do a back-to-back head test, and we will do that naturally aspirated and then run it turbocharged. The additional airflow from the head will probably be less important under boost, but we'll see. Maybe that's not the case. But my question on the thumbnail and for the intro here is that, what do you guys think? What do you guys think that 30 degrees of intake and exhaust duration, 30 degrees of cam timing, not cam timing because it's not variable cam, but 30 degrees of duration, how much do you think that will affect power? So the Schneider cams, the biggest ones they have, unless you do custom ones, they go from like 170, 180 duration on the intake and exhaust to 200, 208. So what do you guys think that's going to do? They also have a little bit more lift. They've got 434 and 386. So that's up a little bit, not a ton. I'd actually like to see a little more lift. And they've gone as high as 520 on some custom deals that they did before, and as high as 230 degrees of duration. So we might think about something more like that if we're going to do a custom deal with a ported head and kind of go hog wild on forged internals and stuff. What I would like to see, given this thing's displacement and RPM potential and stuff, is I'd like to see something. I think it should have something more like a Type R camshaft. I think it should be more in the mid 220s. I'd like to see something in the mid 220s, mid 230s. And it's interesting that they have more exhaust duration but less exhaust lift, and maybe that's common on 4-valve stuff. So what do you guys think? What do you think would do? Yeah, Ameri-Barra's in the house. What do you guys think that the extra duration? I mean, 170 degrees of intake duration is almost nothing. That's not almost not holding the valve open for any time at all. That's a really, really mild cam. And I'm surprised that it made as much power as it did with so little cam timing. I mean, even, 200 degrees, to give you an idea, a factory LM7 cam on an LS, and admittedly, it's obviously bigger, but that factory cam is the mildest cam that they make, and it's 191 degrees at 50. So it's pretty mild. So this stuff is even milder than that. And again, it's a 4.2 liter and not a 5.3 liter. But they use that same cam in the 4.8 liter. And it makes me long for 5.3 LM7 cam timing for the 4200 at least, or something would be even better if you put like an LS9 camshaft in or something like that. But really what I'd like to see, as I said, is something like a Type R kind of camshaft timing would be good. And I think that you could get this thing to make real power, especially if we had a ported head and we had 230 degrees or like a 230, 236 kind of duration thing. And I'd like to see something near 500 lift, especially on the ported version. I think we would really see some power there. But even a 30-degree change, I think it should have a big effect on power, because we're in the range where that 30 degrees is going to make more of a change. Like if we go from 260 to 290, I think that change would be less than going from 170 to 200. Let me know what you guys think. 30 degrees is a bunch of duration. Yeah. Where's pizza at, boss? I know I do need pizza. I haven't had dinner yet. Ameri-Barra's in the house. So let me know. Let's all put in a guess. How much power? If this thing, let's say that this thing makes, I don't know where we were at, 275 or something like that. So let's say that this thing makes 280 horsepower. How much is 30 degrees going to get us? How much is 30 degrees of timing going to get us? Are we going to be over 300 or going to be in the mid 300s? What do you guys think? What do you think is going to be there? So everybody take a guess. Maybe we'll all put a buck in or something, and the winner can win it all, right? It sounds like he's let's see. It sounds like he's saying that if we were to back off some of the VVT, it might do better. Under boost, that's what Calvin was saying. Have you tuned an L84 with an E90 ECM? No, I have not. I don't do factory timing stuff. A common mistake is going too big on camshafts with 4 valves. So how big did you go, Steve? "170 degrees isn't even the full downstroke of the engine." That's right. In a race car, we're at 580 lift, and high 230s duration, but it revs to 9600. Does it want that much lift in that head, Steve? 364 degrees duration sounds good. 25 horsepower NA, 400, 325. So is the Atlas comparable to a 2JZ? It makes a lot more NA power than a 2JZ does. We've already boosted the 4.2 liter. We know it works good. 340. Yep, we're definitely going to test it. So, Steve, you probably know. Did you run smaller cams before you went to the 230 stuff? And I honestly don't see how a 230 goes to 9600 on that displacement. That just seems like a lot. That's not anywhere near what we're running on the Honda stuff. I've overcammed an engine. I think we all are guilty of that. Other than crank harmonics, why wouldn't it make 100 horsepower per liter? I would like to see that number, Daniel. That's the thing I would like to see. I'd like to see an NA 4.2 liter that does 100 horsepower per liter, because I think it has the cylinder head to do that, especially in ported and in ported trim. I don't know why that it wouldn't. I mean, if we look at the Honda B series, it's not extraordinary. I mean, the K series is a way better head and stuff and a way better motor. I just don't understand why, and it seems fairly easy. The cam timing is not real radical, even on the VTEC side, to make 100 horsepower per liter. Admittedly, it's a smaller motor, and it does have lots of head flow. But if we get the head flow, if we can port that 4200 head and get 330, 40, 50 CFM out of it, that's more than enough to support that power level. It will certainly do that. And then we put a short runner intake on it and enough cam timing. And I think that I'd like to see a 400 number. The 2J and the Barra are very comparable. I'll bet a 2J makes more NA power than I bet a Barra makes more power than a 2J does. It's just bigger. We would expect that. Our port head flows well up to 700 700 lift. Okay. That seems like a lot for a 4-valve head. Richard, if you back off on the VVT for boost and make more power, that would mean that some NA profiles would not be the best for the turbo, which means not every cam is a turbo cam. It doesn't mean that at all. It actually, we have the same cams in there. So those cams are, in fact, turbo cams. And they weren't designed as turbo cams. They were designed as NA cams. So, Steve, you guys went big to begin with, 288 duration. It was a dog until about 8,000. Yeah, that seems like a lot. I swapped an LR4 and my El Camino and get slightly worse mileage on my old carb 305. That's not an LSA problem. That's a completely different combination. You won't get 330 CFM from an Atlas motor. I thought guys already do that. Steve, what do your heads flow? I'm rebuilding my 5.4 to 10.5 to 1, forged lightweight pistons and H-beam rods versus having to pay for the FPV Boss 290 version. The Boss 290 version is probably expensive, right? That stuff's easy on the 5.4. John's out. The Atlas will outperform an early 90s inline 6, even an RB26. Its simple head design capacity to be a decade newer. Same with the Barra. I agree on the RB motor. I don't think that stands a chance. It's even smaller than the 2J is. What if you use the 2J VVT equation on a 4.2? I don't know what that equation you're talking about. Yeah, so Steve is saying his Atlas head flows 400 with big valves in it. So you kind of see what's possible. Now his is a specific application. He's got lots of lift in his camshaft and he's running it to up near 10,000 RPM. So he has a dedicated thing that he's doing, but that potential is obviously there. Sean, just so everyone knows, we cracked the mains on our oil squirter Gen 4 iron block. Oil squirter blocks are weaker. Spoke to a friend at GM, apparently common on supercharged Gen 4 blocks. Which ones have oil squirters on them? Obviously an LY6 does not. I run a 284-280 in my 4G63 and can make 600 foot-pounds at 5,500 RPM with a 2-liter. MT wants a good setup for a 390 Ford. Is that a 390? I'm assuming that you're talking about an FE since it's a 66. There's Edelbrock has heads for them, or you could use the stock stuff, just the cam and springs. You could do that way, and then a good intake manifold, or you could do heads, cam, and intake. Edelbrock has stuff for that. The aluminum heads are good. Randall says he overcammed his first car as a 1980 Camaro with a comp 292 510, fixed it with a supercharger. And there are ways to get that kind of torque at 5,500 RPM with enough boost. I mean, our Bonneville motor certainly did that. 2JZ intake and exhaust cam lift and duration numbers being used on a 4.2 liter cam. I don't think that's what Schneider used. Will a 1-inch spacer under a quadrijet on a dual plane make any more horsepower? Yeah, what they tend to do on an open spacer on a dual plane manifold is it's going to shift the power curve. It's going to make more power at the top, and then it could make less power down low because it's going to kind of make it act a little bit more like a single plane. Superchargers add boost, though, and boost is good. Does 862s have big enough valves for a 6.0? Yeah, take a look at the test that I did where I ran the 862s on a 6-liter. The bigger valve, if you want to make the most power, you put an LS3 head on it. Of all the factory heads, that one makes the most power on a 6-liter. And then the next in peak power would be a 243 799, and then the 706 862, and then the 317 if you're just bolting on stock heads. But in my test, the 862 and 706 head made more power up to about 5,500 on the 6-liter. It made more than the 799 243 head did. I have watched Adam LZ's stuff. I think he has a lot of budget. Tom, I didn't take a picture of the rattlesnake that I caught. I didn't even bring my camera. I didn't even bring my phone up there. Just wanted to be alone. Just me, my thoughts, and my snakes. Where the Oldsmobile builds. I don't even have an Oldsmobile motor. Okay, once and for all, we're not going to solve that. Settle an argument. High compression and low boost, or low compression and high boost. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to make the most power, you do high compression and high boost and lots of octane and intercooling. That's how you make the most power. Anything else is going to be a sacrifice between those two. And you can make both of the other two things work. And then if you're talking about doing that on pump gas where it's detonation limited, I don't have an answer because I think you'd have to test your specific combination to find out what the detonation threshold is. And I've actually never done that. 5.3 liter LS turbo car, 20 pounds of boost with an air-to-air intercooler, E85 or race fuel, mostly track car, but some street driving. 20 pounds is easily within the range of E85, and you're going to get extra power there. Do you think I can make 350 horsepower with a quadrijet on a 383? Yeah, very easily. I mean, they have 800 CFM quadrijets, so that you could make 200 more than that. K-Series Big Bang, yeah, it's a K24 is the one that we're doing. Yes, the 390 FE could handle boost with a stock crank and pistons as long as you have ring gap in it. Yeah, the compression and boosting, take a look at all the boost that people are adding to stock motors like an LS3, which is fairly high compression. Also, they're adding boost to Gen 5 stuff, which is very high compression thanks to direct injection and stuff. So you can get away with high compression and boost. Whether or not that's, I mean, everybody wants their thing that they're using to be better, which is kind of silly, but you know, you can make all of that work. I'm still not understanding why you would be considering such small cams, considering the exhaust cam timing variable. So you don't understand why we're testing a cam that's a 200, 208? That's like a shelf cam for them. That's why we're doing that one. Yeah, and if anybody out here, let me know if anybody knows where I can get some, either borrow or buy. I need some 429 Cobra Jet or Super Cobra Jet heads. So if you know anybody or know anybody that knows anybody, I know a guy, maybe they fell off a truck, whatever, let me know, because I'm interested. I want to build a Super Cobra Jet replica motor. And now that I've said that out loud, I'm sure that the other high budget people are going to go do that. The stock FE will handle a lot more than 5 pounds. A P600B. Wow, that's like old school. I think the guys at Westech have one of those old 600s. Do you need an Oldsmobile 455 for a build? I would like a running Oldsmobile 455. That would be awesome. How worthwhile has the 4200 been? I'm doing it to educate people so that they see what it is and whether it has potential and how much power. Everybody wants to know, like, how much power can it make? What's the ultimate amount of power? And we're going to get there. It's just that I want to do other stuff beforehand. So I'm not picking that. Like, I don't think I would pick a 4200 over an LS because it's going to be more expensive. But it's still cool. I mean, I like Chevy Sprints. So nobody's going to pick that over an LS. Except for maybe for me. Could a 351M use a Cleveland style supercharger kit? No, because the deck height's so much higher. So the intake manifold is different on a 351M. What you might be able to do, and what we did, was run spacers so that you could run a 351 Cleveland intake manifold. Now, we've done that, and you might be able to run spacers to put the Cleveland supercharger kit if somebody makes a dedicated intake manifold for a 351 Cleveland. So, Tom, you're bummed that piston rings have a top and a bottom. Yeah, they have first ring and a second ring, and they have a top and bottom side. So, some of them don't. Some of them go both ways, but the ones that do usually have markings on them. Not Boss 9 Cobra Jet heads, Steve. 429 Cobra Jets. Just a conventional one that has a big oversized port on it and a bigger valve. The valve sizing is not critical. If I have Cobra Jet heads, we can make them into Super Cobra Jet heads. Kazi, Julius, I talked to Kazi. He doesn't have any Cobra Jet heads. Overbuilt, I think that would be awesome to see a Sasquatch. Whenever we go up into the hills, like if we go up to Tahoe or anywhere in those areas, that's our funny thing that I do with my kids, is like, this is a very squatchy area. Especially when it gets dark and it's nighttime. They did see bears when they were up the last time we went up to Tahoe. Is there a company selling pre-gap rings for boost nitrous? There are some pre-gap rings, but I don't know that they're gapped for the power adder stuff. Calvin, looking forward to 4200 testing. I found some cam follower shims that should work with the Schneider cams. What, you didn't like my idea of me using the hole punch on the what do we have it on the I'm thinking we either bought shim stock, or I think when we first did it, when I was making the shims for this was for the Suzuki Kazashi, because we had reground cams, so we had to shim the lash adjusters or lifters. So what I did was we got feeler gauges, and then we could have 1 or 2 or 3,000 feeler gauges, and I used a hole punch because the metal, when it's that thin, is pretty easy. So I would just hole punch these perfect round circles and just use those right under the lash adjuster, and I got the lash that I wanted. It worked out really good. So there's a little do-it-yourself tip for you when you're trying to have to set those. Have you done any 7 MGTE testing? I have not. Yeah, 1.2 60-foot time is pretty good, especially that's in a front-wheel drive car. I have talked to Lucky and Tony about the 4200, about theirs. Is it worth it to boost a 350 or just stroke it to 383? Well, with a boost, you can make a lot more power than you can with an NA383. 351M is terrible. But what about a 400M? That's a real performance motor. Yeah, I like interesting stuff too. That's why I would like to do a 455. I can't believe back in the day that the 455 Oldsmobiles were the go-to motor for guys putting them in jet boats. Yep. Once you add boost, and the nice thing about boost is, okay, I'd really like a little more power. On an NA motor, you got to change the cam or the heads or whatever. With a little more boost on a turbo motor, you just go, there's another pound of boost. And now all of a sudden it's all brand new and feels fun again. Sean, what block was that? What motor was it that has an oil squirter in it? I don't know if the accessory pattern is the same. I think that the bell housing is the same as the 460. Typically, if you look at Andy wants to know which one creates more low-speed power, or supercharger, roots blower, or turbo. It's not going to be a centrifugal supercharger. That's going to be the last. It's probably not going to be a turbocharger. If you're talking about boost at 2,000 RPM, unless it's an OEM application where they designed it to have full boost at 1,800 RPM. You can do that with a turbo, but you're not going to do that and then also have 1,500 or 2,000 horsepower on the top. Of all of those things, typically what makes the most low speed power is going to be a positive displacement blower. It doesn't have to be a Roots, could also be a twin screw, but a positive displacement blower at that lower engine speeds tend to have like immediate boost response. I have not done any testing on the 60-degree V6s from the 80s. I would like to go get one and just run it as a big bang motor, just not do anything to it, just put boost to it. A Chupacabra, well, those you can see those in West Texas. The 110 will probably have the most torque from idle to 6,000 for your camshaft needs. Roots blowers for 2-stroke diesels. Wow, shots fired. Tim's really pushing those high value 3.5 and 3.9s. But those weren't back in the 80s, though. We're looking for 80s. We're looking for Madonna V6s, the 2.8s and the 3.1s and 3.4s. Yes, everybody hit the like button. 1,000 horsepower is a lot of power. I once ground the valve tip. Daniel, I once ground the valve tips for lash adjustment on a valve grinder during assembly. I've seen guys tip the valves before. I've seen them do that. I don't like doing that, but it was easy for me to use my hole punch. Yeah, 125 would be a lot of shims there. And actually, Tim is saying roots blowers are for pushing fresh air into a coal mine. And actually, the centrifugal blower is for pushing fresh air into a submarine, because that's what the Paxtons were originally. That's what they were designed for. Honestly, I can't wait to drive my car. Once it's put back together, should have a nice idle. I'm aiming for 400 to 450 at the wheels and above 7,000 RPM. Yes, tall deck Clevelands are good. I mean, if you told somebody you had a 408 stroker Cleveland, they would think that is the greatest thing in the world. But then when you show them that it's a 400M, they're going to be less thrilled. The only downside to the 400M is like the lack of support. You can put Cleveland heads on it, which is good, and there are camshafts for it. All that's good. You can get pistons for it. Excuse me, but intake manifolds are few and far between. Man, I have no beverage left. Andy, if I do a dyno test and sent you the information pictures, would you discuss it on your channel? What are you doing the dyno test of? Let's see. A boosted big block? Survival Motorsports in Michigan might have a lead on Cobra Jet, so I'll write that down. Survival Motorsports. Michigan. Cool, thank you. Jason saying, I worked in a plant where they tested 4.2s early in the testing. They made so much torque they broke the harmonic balancer bolt. I don't know if that's why they broke the balancer bolt. I don't know that it was, I didn't think it was excess torque. I'm pretty sure that it was harmonics. Overbuilt. This is nice. This is interesting. This is right up my Sasquatch area here. Richard, I know a cool guy in Montana. His YouTube channel is World Bigfoot Radio. Will take you no charge camping, and they will sneak up and watch you all so you can see, so we can all see one, because they just know a place where all the Bigfoots are in Montana. Steve, a friend of mine ran a 455 Buick GS stock eliminator car and ran it all the way up to 5,000 RPM. I know those things are, especially stock ones. I do like the I like the 442s. I think that those are cool cars. The Jaguar Supercharger from the Jag V8. I don't know. That's not the same as the Cadillac blower, right? Is that smaller than that? Calvin's in the process of changing another LS car to 4200. That's nice. I know they do sound really cool. We get to hear LS stuff on the dyno all the time, and I do need to do some more twin turbo testing with the guys from Max Speeding. I'm going to run their 3076s and their 3582s. I just need to get another set of the flanges that convert the 4-bolt flange from the turbo into a V-band. So as soon as I get those, I want to run some more twin turbo testing, because I think that those are cool. Does anyone have a good standalone ECU wiring harness for a late EcoBoost 3.5 twin turbo setup? Toyota 3.4 liter with a TRD supercharger and a turbo. I can't wait to get the Now it looks like we found a way to, and thank you guys because somebody pointed this out. Somebody got this guy in contact with me about how to run the Holley with the factory crank trigger that's on the 3800. So when I head down there, I'm hoping that we can get that thing running. Has anyone attempted to run a centrifugal supercharger with a turbo? Yeah, but I don't know why you would do that. It'd be much better to do it with a positive displacement, like immediate boost kind of thing. $4,200 in a Vega. For being such a great guy and so down to earth, answering all the questions all the time. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the help and suggestions you offer. And please make sure that if you do that, and thank you very much, make sure that you throw in a question like, you know, stump the idiot kind of thing. It won't be hard. Yeah, I don't like that the EPA, the question is, you've been in the auto industry for over 20 years. It couldn't be because I'm only in my late 20s. So that would mean I would started when I was like 7 or 8. Do you have an opinion on the EPA? Yeah, I don't think it's good. I don't want them obviously to shut everybody down and not be able to modify any car. There's no logical reason why they should do that, because we can do the things that we do and still pass emissions and make, you know, we can have performance and clean air. We just give us the, you know, set the goal and we'll achieve it because we have that kind of technology and we have the desire and the ability to do that. And so I wish that people would work with us and say, hey, look, let's all get together and solve whatever issue this is. And, you know, let's do it. Off the topic questions are always good. Just throw out there whatever you got, man. A 4.2 swap Supra, that would be good. Will it be worth it to swap 862 heads on a 6-liter in the yard and walk out? You can if you want. I don't know why you wouldn't just run the heads that are there. You can make a lot of power with the 317s. Just mill them. Build a 6-liter for my Hummer H2, valve springs, cam, and ring gap. Good combination. Turbo and fueling. Then sounds like a good combination. 4,200 in my 540 E39 wagon. I like it. BMW. I'll keep my 7 MGTE in my Mark III in your Super, right? I like those. I like those Supers. I like that body style. I do like the fancy ones, but I like those too. Yeah, Calvin can show you the 4200 wiki on Google. See, he's already got it set up, man. So Ford designed the Chevy 2.8-liter V6. I wonder if they didn't. What was the little V6 that they had in the Capris? Didn't they have a 2.8-liter V6 in their Capris? Was it? That's got to be a different engine family, obviously, right? I really like those Capris. I am still planning on doing a Big Bang 454. I'm going to look at that motor when I'm down there. It's there. It's on a stand right now. Didn't they make a spacer to use a 351 in Cleveland? Yeah, 2 spacers, 1 on each side. We ran those on the 400M that I had. Have you ever seen any higher PM gain on a 6-liter LY6 L92 by going to a better hydraulic lifter versus the cheap Summit Racing branded ones? I've never tried the Summit branded one that you're talking about. We run stock ones from the wrecking yard. We also have some that are from Felpro or from some local auto parts store that we run. The only time I've ever run really expensive lifters are when we ran short travel lifters on the 8,000 RPM thing because we thought that we would need them then. CJ Pony Parts. Okay, I like that. That sounds like it's going to be. I remember talking to the guys at the car place. I thought it was called Pony Carburetors, maybe not. But they were telling me some of the pricing on some of the carburetors from when I was doing these reproductions of these original muscle car motors, like the intake manifold for the 351 The Boss 351 was really expensive. The 780 for the DZ302 was really expensive. Some of those carburetors were just ridiculous. Yeah, Calvin, have you ever run the 4-cylinder or the 5-cylinder version of the 4200? I like the question is, should I go GT40 or GT40P heads? I would go GT4. I like the GT40 heads better than I like the P heads. The German Capri was a 2.8 liter. Okay. What mods you get on your red truck? If I'm cruising, if I go 65, that truck will get almost 20 on the freeway. Holder's a politician. Pretty far from that. Looking to upgrade my cam in a 5.3, but also want to replace the oil pump while I'm here. Millings makes a high volume, high pressure pump. Is there such a thing as too much oil pressure? Yes, we talked about that on one of the other live feeds. You don't need that. You only need the amount of oil that you need. High pressure and high volume are not better than having a standard pump. .8 and a 2.9 V6. Cologne V6 was the European Capri's. You might want to add, Calvin, do you know what the weight is on these 4200s? I'd like to see somebody run the 3.7 liter, the 5-cylinder, or even the 4-cylinder version. Can you boost a drummer? Can you stroke a 5.3 with a 4-inch crank without boring cylinders to make it a 5.8 liter? Yes, you can. You can put a 4-inch stroke in it without boring it. I'm 3 to 4 minutes behind on the live chat. I need to zoom down here. Calvin saying 320 pounds on the Bear block with no fluids, on the Bear long block. I've never run a fish carburetor. So mechanics, you remember them running a 5-cylinder. We actually ran a 5-cylinder on the chassis dyno and put a Powerdyne supercharger on it. My buddy James did it. And he did it for the guys at, oh man, what was it? RK Smith. And it worked good. But that's the only test I ever remember seeing on the 5-cylinder. Have you ever played with super lean conditions? Yeah, the Civic VX I have goes into lean burn. It's about 19-1 under lean burn. The Canadian government also wants to ban internal combustion cars and trucks. That's not good. I do like the super lean burn stuff. I also like the stratified charge stuff. I like all of that kind of technology. It's pretty neat. Calvin, why do you want to do a 2.9? Because it fits right under a 3-liter class, perhaps? Drive-by-wire cable. I like mechanical throttle bodies. I don't like drive-by-wire ones. Super secret stuff. That's right. That's what happens. French, you got gapped by a Tesla today? They do make a lot of torque. Leaning out the planes was fairly common back in the day, because if you had to make it to a certain spot and you had to run the motor lean, and those were the choices of, of crashing or running the motor lean, you could lean them out. Bingo, F-class, nice. With an LY6 and a BTR dual spring, titanium retainers, what would you consider the RPM limit regardless of cam? Looking for recommendations for a high RPM cam for use on a long road course. Your RPM limit is not going to come from the bottom end of that motor. Although you're on a road race car, you're going to want to make sure that you get the oiling system right. That's going to be a critical thing. Then you want to make sure that you get your camshaft right. I'm not talking about like lots of duration or lots of lift. You're going to need the things have to be stable. So it's got to be stable to work with that spring and a titanium retainer. And that spring and a titanium retainer in and of itself is not going to allow you to run lots of RPM. Everything has to work together. You have to have the camshaft, the ramp rate of the cam. It has to be stable. You also want to take that spring and make sure that you're about 25 or 30 thousandths away from coil bind when you set it up. You know, there's a lot of things that go into having that thing run lots of RPM. Have you seen? Yeah, I have seen the Boosted Boys NSX. I had a turbocharged NSX, so I was really interested in that. I think that that's very cool. I like those motors. I like the fact that they did it with the K-Series even more, because that's kind of cool. Trying to do that with a turbo NSX motor is obviously an expensive proposition. Not that they're, you know, 4-digit power level K-Series is not cheap either, but it's not like it's NSX money, though. Charles Lindbergh story is more complicated than that. I'll have to check it out. I posted a picture, Steve. I posted a picture on Facebook of our cylinder head and said I had blurred out the secrets. The whole picture was blurred. Race car guys. Well, French, I'm happy you're here too, man. Let's see. I'm slowly starting a 454 turbo build, single or twin, aiming for 1,000 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower is easy with a 454. That's a cam, and you can do it with stock heads too. I mean, stock heads and cam and springs and then boost. It's pretty easy. Just put a single. If you only want 1,000 horsepower, S480 or S485, something like that. As a single, it would work. If you do twins, you could put twin GT45s on there, like I did. That's really cheap. And that can get you way into the 1,000 horsepower range, 11, 1,200, 1,300. Yeah. We won't do a video on it, Steve. Come on. We won't tell anybody. There's tens of people watching this channel. The NSX and the S2000 are the only cool Hondas. Oh, that is so not even close to being true. So who here has seen the Jeep World Record video where they ran the 4-liter Jeep engine? And actually, I think it's bigger than 4 liters now, because I think they put the 4.2-liter crank in it, and they also overboard it quite a bit too. So it's bigger than 4 liters. And they did a good job, and it made a lot of power. But my question is, if you guys have seen that video, why do you think that they stopped at only, where did they run? I was taking notes on it. 20 pounds or 21 or 22 pounds, I think. So why did they stop there? That's my question. And how much power do you think is left in that thing? Yeah, 21 pounds made 860 horsepower and 880 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot. I mean, that's good power. And it's right on with the, if you look at their NA power output, it tracks right on with that, the numbers that they're getting. So what do you guys think? Why didn't they go to 1,000 horsepower? Do you think they're waiting for somebody else to do something to make more than that, so that they can then step their game up to make to just add more? Because they also filled the block, so they cemented the block, and then they used an iron head, which I don't think that I mean, I think you could use an aluminum metal block head. I think that they wanted to do it with a factory head, but I'm sure that they put a lot of time and effort into that head. If you take a look at the work that they did, it was pretty impressive. But I thought it was very cool, and I thought it was interesting that they, I mean, when you're going for all of it numbers, who stops at 20 pounds? Just a little tidbit I thought I'd throw in there. Their turbo was enough to support, at least that's what they said, it was enough to support 11 or 1200. So a 4.7 liter is what they made it up to. That it was pretty big. I mean, they bored it quite a bit. They went to a 4-inch bore and a 3895 stroke. So that's up quite a bit, both on bore and stroke. Have you ever tested a modded big block Chevy with an 045 open chamber 122 heads? I really like to put 5 to 10 pounds with the turbo. You can put 5 to 10 pounds with any head on any big block, so don't worry about that. Obviously it's better if it's not 15-to-1 compression and doesn't have a camshaft with a 100-degree LSA. That works, but not as good as it could. So any motor from the wrecking yard or any big block with any kind of head on it, whether it's a peanut port head or like an 049 or any kind of oval port head or any of the factory rec port heads or any of the aftermarket heads, they all work. And you can put 5 or 10 pounds, although that's a pretty big swing. You can run 10 pounds of boost on any of those motors and it'll work really well. Yeah, 5.3 LSs should be very common. Those are the ones that I see most often. The 4.8 and the 5.3 are what I see all the time. The 292 is still going to have more testing. Okay, Steve, now prepare for a barrage of emails. I wanted to build a big block Chevy, but they are nowhere to be found in Ohio. So did you look in the trucks and stuff? There should be a lot of big block trucks and stuff that have those big blocks in them. That's where we find all of the Gen 6 stuff. To find an L31 or even a TBI 350 is even harder. Man, we see lots of those in the wrecking yard. Scuba Steve. 10 pounds on a big block you should be making good power. Yeah, I'd like to find a big block Mopar in a motorhome, but we don't see a lot of motorhomes in the one that's closest to West Tech, though. Sean, I'd be concerned with the lower structure of the Jeep block at those power levels. That's what they filled it. They filled it all the way up to a little more than halfway on the water pump passage. They left some to get some cooling in there, and obviously it's just a dyno queen or a drag race thing at that point. How much boost can an 8100? I've never even run one on the dyno, but I would think a fair bit. What do you prefer, big blocks or small blocks? I like all of them. It depends on what I'm doing. A Ford Y block. I've never run one of those on the dyno. The 23-degree valve angle for the Gen 1 small block Chevy was a big improvement over the stuff that was around at the time. It's just obviously a big jump over a flathead Ford. What are you doing, XCKR Rebel? Let's see, why? So why hasn't the Gen 3 Hemis gotten the same attention as the LS family? I don't know. That's a good question. The guys that when I wrote that first book for the guys, they were asking that too. Why isn't the Hemi popular? It's got a really good cylinder head, which the LS has. I think it got a bad reputation because nobody could tune them for a long time. People were blowing them up left and right because they didn't know how to tune them. They were still putting blowers and turbos and stuff on them, but they couldn't tune it. So what would happen? They would blow them up. But I like them. The heads flow tremendous, especially the late model ones. The intakes are really good. They can make lots and lots of power. You have run a Ford Y block, Richard. They're called LS engines. Nice. A turbo dart block, big block Chevy with decent heads will make more power than any LS would. So you're a big block Chevy fan, I'm taking it. Haven't seen any testing on the BTR LLS road race and drift cams. I haven't ever run one of those. I'll have to ask Brian about them. I'll have to ask him what they did. Yeah, John Causey built the Y block. John Causey built a Y block that accepted a small block Chevy intake manifold. That shows you how much work he put into the Y block. When you do a big bang on the 8100, I've never even run one of those on the dyno, so that will be pretty far off. Put Ford heads on your big block Chevy, then it will make power. Nice. Ford and Chevy guys are arguing back and forth all the time. Buy aluminum heads for big block Chevy. I agree. I don't like lifting up iron heads. I know the Big Bang L67. I agree. I definitely want to see that. I just want to see all the testing. I love when I can finally get it up there and have it run and start and be in a position where now it's accepting like changes that we're making to the tune. God, getting it there seems to be so time consuming and difficult. What's a D3 Ford head? Just an anarchist, I can get 464s all day long. Well, if you get 464s, can you get some Cobra Jet heads? D3 versus AFR 185. What is a D3? Somebody tell me what a D3 head is. Put LS heads on your 300 Ford. There you go. Now we're talking. Or I think guys did Cleveland heads on those too. Somebody asked me if I could just cut a small block Chevy head and put it on the 4.3 liter V6. And I told them it might be a little bit more involved than that. I should beat the 4-liter record. I think we could. I'm not saying it's not amazing what they did, and I know what goes into something like that. I'm just saying that if somebody did and put something together and just turned the boost up and ran more boost than they run, they probably could make more than that, especially if they did things a little bit differently with not using an iron head. I would use an aluminum head. All the other stuff that they did is obviously first rate. They know what they're doing. They know how to tune it, and they know how to make power, and they know how to keep it alive. So that's awesome, and hats off to them. It's just that if you run 30 pounds instead of 20 pounds, it's going to make more power. And then they're just going to go back and step it up again, which would be kind of fun. Oh, D3 is a Yates head. So you want to test a Yates head against a 185 airflow research head? Is the Toyota 2ZZ or 1ZZ compatible with the dyno? I don't know. It depends on what bell housing that is. How much power could a 460 make with a whole set HX40 turbo? I don't know, Tim. What you probably know what the flow rate is of that HX40. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's a 60 millimeter. Yeah, 600 horsepower. That's not very big. Wow, Flexall. Holder, if you could beat the power on the 4 liter and run it a few times, I'll finally give you a like on live stream. Wow, man. AFR versus Yates. An AFR versus Yates. So why don't we just do what's the inexpensive AFR head? The Enforcer? Let's just do an Enforcer versus like an 11 degree race small block Chevy head. That would be good. Cadillacs do have heavy valve trains. Oh, yeah. Roush Yates, NASCAR, Cleaver, candid valve castings. Yeah, those should be compared. Why don't we just compare them to a GT40 head? I can get my hands on an old school flathead engine. The gentleman I was just talking, I just sent him an email or a text message on the day before the 3rd of July. Asked him how he was doing. Bob, as a matter of fact, I have his intake manifold on this small block Chevy out here. He's the guy that gave me the 347 Pontiac and the Slant 6 that I'm going to run. He has flathead race engines, which is very, very cool. And he said I can run one when I'm ready. I want to see Big Bang videos for different turbos. So you want to run the turbo till the turbo blows up? The Chevy LS looks remarkably similar to the Gurney Eagle Ford small blocks of the 60s if you compare the two. I don't know that I've seen like a Gurney Westlake head actually in person. Beat the 4 liter record and keep it drivable. I don't know that the block will take that. I think that's why they did that to the block. Richard, reach out to the Glidden family. They probably have tons of heads. Probably have what you're looking for. Yeah, and I do know somebody that knows them. Eagle Eyes Gaming. Take my drag car money. You got to save your money for drag racing, man. Besides the big three, if you had to only work with one engine family for now, and what would it be? I don't think I could do that. Everybody wants me, and I get this kind of question all the time. Everybody wants me to be a one thing. Okay, what's your favorite car? What's your favorite engine? It's not like that for me. I wouldn't ever do that. I wouldn't just work on one engine. I'm not a Chevy guy. I'm not a Ford guy. I'm not a Honda guy, despite the fact that for long periods of time, I worked on one thing in particular. That's why I wrote a modular Ford book, because for a long time, I did almost nothing but modular Ford testing. And then same thing with when I first started at West Tech, it was like almost all exclusively 5 liter Ford guys. And I was the Mustang guy, despite the fact that I was working for All Chevy magazine at the time. So I was a Honda guy. And then I started doing like tons of B series Honda stuff and D series and other things too, because I did a ton of Honda testing. So I did a couple of Honda books and then Hemis and then all of that stuff. And I like learning all the new ones as we go. When I bought my Chevy Sprint, man, I went down the rabbit hole on all the Chevy Sprint stuff. And I still would like to run that motor that I have sitting around. Godzilla Ford, those are cool. Austin, have you ever seen a 57-inch Pontiac 318? Mine's a 347, so that would be mine's, and it's a 57. So the 318 would be earlier, right? And it's the tri-power stuff. My motor in 57 came with a tri-power. The one that I have is a 2-barrel because it was in a truck. But they had tri-power versions that made quite a bit of power. And they also have all kinds of cool induction systems from back then. They even, in 57, Pontiac had a fuel injection for that motor and made good power. It's a weird version kind of the Rochester deal, but it was a Pontiac version of that. Dad had an old 57 tri-power Super Chief Pontiac with 318 California Highway Patrol car, 11.7 in the quarter. So it was heavily modified then, right? That's pretty cool. Bob Glidden gave you a noogie. Nice. The guy that has the flatheads has set records with his flatheads that he has. He's got Miller heads on them and all kinds of cool stuff. Have you ever dynoed a 409 Chevy? I have not. I've never built one. There was a guy when I was standing in line at the wrecking yard the last time I was down there that his was a 348, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure it was a 348 from a truck probably. But it was a W motor, and I walked over to him like, dude, that's the coolest thing in the world. He said, yep, I'm the only one that found this. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's very cool. But they have run 409s at West Tech. I just have never run one. Trying to do a budget-ish. I want to do a Holley Sniper, True North, 88mm turbo. Going to do the same cam. You put in the 454, air-to-water cooler, stock head, valve spring upgrade. That will work good. That'll make good power. Can you find any truck V10s? I have seen the modular Ford V10s, but I've never. I have seen one Dodge V10 in a truck, but that's the only one I've ever seen. Is the VVT technology useless in newer engines? No, it's awesome in newer engines. We blew a Godzilla with 14 pounds. Yeah, the Sean Hyland book sold much better than mine because people actually don't want to know dyno results. They want to know interchangeability, I guess, when they're looking through the books, which is really good. He did some good. Sean did some good stuff. That I go to that book all the time. What size ports do you recommend for my flathead Ford? Just add boost. Chrysler A engine. Wheelbase media. It would be fun to build a boosted LA 340 360 to put against a Hellcat. Looking at horsepower per dollar. All right, Julius, head now, man. I'd like to learn how to weld engine blocks together. That would be cool. The ones that I've seen them do, they usually laser weld them. So I think it's pretty big money. No cam recognition for a road race 6-liter. I would talk to the guys at BTR about that. The 409 became the 427 and 454. That's what I told him I wanted to do. I wanted to do a turbo on one of the flatheads. And also, when I was talking to Jerry today, where I got the 4200 cam, he's getting his propane setup ready for me to test also. Harry, if you're doing that, make sure to take a look at connecting rod to camshaft interference, which is fairly common when you're going with big stroke stuff. Do a Buick inline 6. How about a Buick straight 8? Steve, you know a guy that took 2 4-cylinder Mopar sprint car engines and welded them together to make an inline 6? Wouldn't that be an inline 8, or is he only using 6 of them? Fords were fast before LS Fops. Yeah. Take a look at what Gene Deputy and all those guys were doing back in the day. Oh, cut 1 cylinder off of each engine. Okay, I get you, Steve. Okay, 1 more minute. I got to get going. So if you have any questions, make it quick. Man, I've been here. I'm already late. I'm already going over time. I've got to go out and put my engine hoist away and all that stuff because my son and I helped me hoist that small block 4.3 liter. Yeah, 4.3 liter V8. So I can take it down to West Tech and take it apart. Isn't there a V12 JZ engine? Didn't they use one in the limousines? Joshua, we're going to do a 4200. Nice. You think you could replicate an 80s NASCAR setup for the dyno? West Tech has a couple of old motors. I don't know how old the NASCAR stuff is. They do have some 80s pro stock motors there, though. So if anybody's interested in some older pro stock motors, let me know. The West Tech guys have some of those. I just got a 600cc Honda 600Z. That is awesomeness. VW with a turbo. Yeah, the air-cooled stuff. And the Speed Demon was actually the flat fire before it was the Speed Demon, so that they were running a Vortex supercharged flathead in it, and it went really fast. It made good power. Yes, I will. What I need for the L67 is and I think I can get this from the wrecking yard. I need a bell housing, and then I'm going to get, the other thing I'm going to get is the naturally aspirated 3.8 liter F body aluminum intake, I think, to run it with the turbo. Sell me the intake for the EFI 54. I have that single plane with the elbow, I think, and stuff on it. Yeah. Come on, Tim. Nothing but love. All right, guys, I gotta get going. Thank you guys for showing up. I'm happy to be back. I got some more videos coming up. Obviously, I'll be down at West Tech doing a bunch of testing. Hopefully, got my fingers crossed. Got the motor in the back. I'm ready to roll on down the line. Hopefully, do some 4200 testing. I really want to do the turbo stuff, and I really want to do the VVT testing with that. And then now I have. Hopefully, they got all of the. He said my machinist said, taking the studs out, the broken studs out that we broke in the 4200. I was told that they would come out very easily. He said, yeah, no, they're not coming out very easily. So that's not a real thing. He said it took them a long time to get all those studs out. But I have LS studs for it that I can put in there, and we're hoping that all works. And I can get that thing up and running, and we can run more boost and make even more power, especially once we know what the thing wants in terms of cam timing. Thank you guys for showing up. I will see you later. Boom. And do.